No, no, no. You read the title, you see the thumbnail, hear me out. This game has a lot of good. First, let's start with the localization. If you know anything about localization these days in anime and Japanese video games, it's horrible. They changed the most basic lines of dialogue for no reason to be hip and quirky with my generation, and to me, it's just super mega cringe. But with Phoenix Wright, 100% of this game is localized. The developers make sure you think this game takes place in America, California specifically, even though this game is filled with Japanese traditions. Some of the localizations being Miles' favorite food being burgers, but in the original it's ramen, and the countries being changed around, like Japan being called America, America being called Germany. In the original Japanese version of the game, the Von Karmas are Americans, but in the English version, they're German. And then we have every single name in the series, and 80% of them are puns, which I think is for the best because I couldn't imagine Ryuichi Naruhodo Ace Attorney would be all that popular anywhere in the world outside of Japan. For those that don't know, Ryuichi Naruhodo is Phoenix Wright's name in the original Japanese version of the series. And slight spoilers, while getting this information, I accidentally spoiled myself by finding out the main character in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is related to Phoenix Wright, his name being Rinosuke Naruhodo. I guess the higher-ups over at Capcom didn't like the localization and went with a more literal localization team, because if they had the same team or did the same thing they did with every other Phoenix Wright game, his last name should be Wright, right? His name would be Pigeon Wright, because Phoenix being a bird, pigeons also being a... Never mind. Going back on topic though, the localization really is the best thing about these games, even though that really shouldn't be the case, especially when the localization takes so many liberties in changing some of the biggest things in the game. Sure, there are the memes, eat your burger Apollo, whoever this character is. I'm guessing he's the guy I'll be playing as in the next trilogy. I mean, the game after Trials and Tribulations is called Apollo Justice. Okay, I have some brain cells to rub together, but look at how many other anime series are out there where they change pretty big details about characters, like Sanji and a cigarette being replaced with a dum-dum, or Brock talking about some jelly donuts while holding the most Japanese shit ever. These scenes are famous for being bad, but for whatever reason, Maya being a burger babe instead of a ramen rodent, and countries being switched around, and the character's name being a pun for man freed from karma gets a pass. Man, like I said before, localizations of today are extremely cringe. Either that or the localization team just doesn't exist and they do a more literal translation, and the dialogue ends up not making any sense, like that one scene from Persona 5 where Ryuji is talking to an Hawaiian in perfect English then acts like he doesn't know what he's saying.
Hi, aloha. You can find your buses that way.
Damn, you speak Japanese?
My boy, he's speaking the same language as you. Look, I don't know what makes Phoenix Wright's localization so good, but I love it. It might be controversial to say, but I'm willing to bet this is one of the only, if not the only time the localization is far superior than the original version. But with this good, there are a lot of bad, and it's time for somebody to call this game out for it. By the end of this video, you guys will end up agreeing with me because my opinions are always the right ones, and if you disagree, you are entitled to your wrong opinions, but please know it is in fact wrong. Oh, and in this video, I will only be talking about the first 3 games in the series because I haven't played any of the other Phoenix Wright games. And if I decide to play every Ace Attorney game out there, I wouldn't be able to make a video of the entire series because as of the time of this recording, there are Phoenix Wright games out there that hasn't been translated to English yet, and I doubt it ever will. Ace Attorney Investigations, Miles Edgeworth 1 was localized, but the second game wasn't. I assume it's because the sales were so bad in the East. I wouldn't be too mad if those games were non-canon, but the thing is, they are canon. And if they weren't canon, what would even be the point of making these games in the first place? I haven't played the games yet, but apparently these games, Ace Attorney Miles Edgeworth, are referenced in Spirits of Justice. a game that came out years later. If only there were remastered bundles of the Ace Attorney series that could throw these two games in and fully localize the second one. But I guess that's a bit too much to ask for games that are canon to the series. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection have the first 3 games in the Metal Gear Solid series and the first 2 Metal Gear games with the sequel Solid Snake and the non-canon Snake's Revenge. They even threw in the NES version of the first Metal Gear game in there. Honestly, it's not really that bad, at least compared to Mortal Kombat, where you can't even buy most of the games anymore. Anyway, we have the first Ace Attorney game with 5 cases, which is weird. I had to do some digging for this one because the more I looked into it, the more I couldn't believe it. The OG Ace Attorney game came out in 2001. Then Justice for All, the second game, a year later in 2002. Trials and Tribulations, the third game, in 2004. When the OG game got put on the DS in 2005, the people over at Capcom decided to add an extra case to the first Ace Attorney game. Imagine getting DLC for the first game when 2 other games in the series came out. That's just weird to me because these games were already made and done probably way before they even thought about adding a 5th case. So even though case 5 is canon, it is 100% not canon to Justice for All and Trials and Tribulations because these games were already made and done probably way before they even thought about adding DLC to the first game. Also, this pisses me off. Rise from the Ashes is the only case in the entire series to not have Turnabout in the title. They had 3 whole games for this. They knew they were going for the Turnabout in every case trend. So why didn't they go for it here? How do you mess up the naming here? Speaking of names, in case you didn't know, which I don't know how that's possible, did you not pay attention to the first part of my video? A lot of characters in the series have puns as names. The first person you find guilty's name is literally Saw It. And you have Larry Butts, which for some reason Mia calls Harry Butts. Come on, lady, he's already been cursed with this name. You don't have to kick him out, he's already down. Then you have Dick Gumshoe. Dick and Gumshoe being slang terms for a private detective. April May, the months April and May. Red Wright and Blue, his company being Blue Corp. Red Wright Blue because he's an American. Haha, get it? The obnoxious American stereotype. Real Power being Real Power. And then you have Penny Nichols. Pennies and nickels because she's a collector. Cody Hackins being Code Hacker. Computer hacking. Salmonella. D Vasquez, Diva. Lot of heart because she has a lot of heart. Dustin Prince, like fingerprints, dusting for fingerprints. Eeny, meeny, and mimi, meeny because of the rhyme eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Ron Delight, like joy. Desiree Delight, like she desires delight. Luke at me, being look at me. His name is fucking Look at Me. I don't know why this game is so obsessed with puns, but I love it. Okay. I've been stalling long enough. Let's talk about the story in cases and in-universe laws and the world of Phoenix Wright, because it is beyond stupid. We're gonna be here for a while. First of all, if you know anything about this series, you probably know the justice system is more corrupt than the United States justice system, and that's really saying something. But this game does take place in America and Japan at the same time, somehow. So yeah, anyway, the rule is you are presumed innocent until you have been proven guilty. People online and social media believe you are guilty until proven innocent, but sometimes even if you are innocent, screw you, you're still guilty in the court of public opinion. But in the world of Phoenix Wright, you are guilty until someone else has been proven guilty, and oh my goodness, imagine that bullshit. Say somebody makes a false accusation against you, then you get arrested and will get charged with murder. You prove you're innocent with the tightest of airtight alibis, but not only do you have to prove somebody else is guilty, you also have to prove their motives. But if you prove they 100% killed the victim but can't figure out the reason why they did it, well, the defendant is just screwed and you will be thrown in the slammer, if not the death penalty, which again, is some bullshit. Especially the motive part, because this only goes one way. In Turnabout Sisters, Edgeworth argues Maya killed Mia with the statue, but provides no motive as to why she would do this. So you can get arrested in probably the electric chair with no motive, but in order for me to get you off the hook, I have to pin the guilt on somebody else and the motive. You being proven innocent doesn't matter, and this is the standard for the defense attorney in universe. And the characters are out here doing some of the most illegal things you can do, and they don't get punished. Same thing for the prosecutors. So many times, characters will lie in the courtroom and prosecutors will use every dirty tactic in the book, which isn't bad. I mean, it is a video game, you have to make it challenging and fun somehow, but it's odd how characters can get away with lying over and over and over again, be seen as credible, and even get away with attempted murder in the courtroom. But oh my gosh, God forbid Phoenix messes up one time ever. Even when Phoenix solidifies himself as a legitimate lawyer, he still gets walked all over by everybody, including the judge. The same judge who constantly sides with the prosecutors in every single case. Now, to be fair, the prosecutors Phoenix goes up against are worldwide famous and undefeated, so I can see the unintentional favoritism. But he does the same thing for Godot, who hasn't won a single case ever as a prosecutor. And in universe, Phoenix should be extremely famous himself, but I guess every character forgot that Phoenix ended the win streak of 3 of the biggest prosecutors in the world. One of them was undefeated for 40 years. That is an incredible feat, especially with how convoluted these cases are. And it gets even better for Phoenix when you realize at the time he was a rookie defense attorney who has only had 3 cases under his belt, and he ended the 40-year-long streak. Bruh. I guess characters have a very short-term memory, which I think is the case, like Grossberg not recognizing Phoenix Wright after meeting him in the first case in Trials and Tribulations. And you know what? Now that I think about it, throughout the trilogy, Phoenix really is a horrible defense attorney because in every single case, he needs help to get through it. He mostly gets help from Mia Fey, which is baffling to me because she is a dead woman, and she transformed into her body mid-trial, and nobody points out how this itty-bitty tiny 4'1", 9-year-old girl all of a sudden became a foot taller and grew massive breasts. We know this is canon in universe and not in Phoenix's head or whatever, because Von Karma, the Francisco one, and Godot both points this out, and to my knowledge, that's all we get in the trilogy. Nobody is shocked about a dead woman coming back from the dead or body transformation. Sure, you could chalk this up to characters not knowing about dead Mia Fey. I mean, not everybody pays attention to every single murder case, sure, but in the case Mia dies in, people aren't like, hold up, ain't she dead? But even then, it would still be super mega sus seeing a child turn into a full-grown adult. Do people just not remember who's on Phoenix's side in the courtroom? And actually, how is spirit channeling not seen as a legit thing in universe? This is the worst kind of atheist cope I've ever seen. How do you have hardcore proof of spirit channeling that has played a massive role in multiple trials, but still not acknowledge it? Like, Miles Edgeworth in Trials and Tribulations says he follows science. He doesn't believe in faith or anything spiritual, which historically doesn't make any sense. Some of the biggest scientific brains in human history were believers in God. The two always went hand in hand. I don't understand how these two became separate, but you know what, whatever, that's besides the point. The point is, how can somebody see psych locks, people possessing and transforming into other people's bodies and go, nuh-uh, and act like it's nothing? This right here is an extreme amount of cope. It's like Brian from Family Guy seeing and meeting in-universe Jesus Christ, but is still an atheist.
All right, I'll be the one to say it. How do we know you're really Jesus? Can you perform miracles?
Sure. How about this?
Oh boy, Sundays!
I love you, Jesus!
Oh, I love you too, fella.
Or Spider-Man in the comics sometimes being atheist, even though he's been to hell and met gods. It would be extremely weird for either of these two to not believe in anything spiritual. And on the topic of spirit mediums, it makes no sense for Maya Fey to not channel the spirit of the victim. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. The DL6 incident demolished the channeling technique's reputation, but I don't accept this one screw up being the reason why they're never allowed to do spirit channeling, especially when the prosecutors have been caught using and presenting forged evidence. What's crazy about this is that it didn't stop them from keeping their jobs as a prosecutor, and it hasn't tarnished their reputations either. Real quick, going back to what I was saying earlier about Phoenix always needing help in every case he's in, it's true. This dude cannot win a single case on his own without help. Even in the tutorial trial, this guy needs help. But it's even worse than that. Looking back on it, Phoenix is actually really bad at his job. This dude legit bumbles his way through the trials, not having any real idea what's going on. Which is weird because after presenting one piece of evidence, he's out here looking like Batman, figuring out the lie, the motive, and how the murder happened when the leap in logic from one piece of evidence doesn't make any sense. I don't know how the other games are, but I imagine it's relatively the same on some level, whether it's Mia Fey or some other character. Which is incredibly frustrating because Phoenix is the main character, the guy we play as. So in all of these cases, we can never figure out the case ourselves because we're forced into getting help from another person. Game, let your boy shine a bit more, but you can't do that because the game characters are so dumb, you have to wait for everybody else to figure it out first. This isn't an Ace Attorney thing, by the way. This seems to be an anime game thing because Danganronpa is the exact same way. In Danganronpa, everybody and their mother knew Leon was the one that killed Sayaka Maizono. The very moment we heard the we knew Leon did it, but we had to sit here and wait for all of the other characters to figure it out like 2 hours later. And in Phoenix Wright, the painful example is where Dustin Prince died on impact from a broken freaking neck, and you can't call out that he couldn't have written Maggie's name. No, instead, you have to point out he spelled her name wrong. Or characters would be thinking of this, but then say, no, it's impossible for you to walk around the monkey head blocking the path and turnabout samurai. Bruh, you can walk around the monkey head by going a little bit off the path. No, you can't. And nobody ever thinks about that possibility. Even though I'm pretty sure in this case, Cody Hackins walks in the bushes. Not only that, but in this very same case, before the last day of the trial, Phoenix and Maya gets held up by 4 big dudes and Vasquez. Gumshoe doesn't find this weird or odd, and apparently neither does Phoenix because he doesn't get Gumshoe on the stand to testify about this. As a matter of fact, this entire situation doesn't come up ever again after this scene. And going to Turnabout Big Top, people are really out here thinking Max's magic is real because the prosecutor, Franziska von Karma, literally never makes an argument as to how Max could have flown in the air. She literally thinks this man flew, and so does everybody else in the courtroom. Now, to be fair, Von Karma is smart and only cares about winning. So if everybody's too dumb to figure out that magic isn't real, then I guess that's not really on her for exploring that, but that still makes everybody else in the case incredibly dumb. Not to mention Acro having an entire bust under his chair that nobody can see because of his blanket, but like the backside of real chairs exist and is still visible. And going back to Maggie, in Recipe for Turnabout, Maggie saw the murder take place but doesn't recognize the killer. And the very next day pulls up to court pretending to be Phoenix and she doesn't recognize the guy. But a month later, she remembers the guy's face in a photo. Bro, what? Okay, seriously. Are we supposed to take this scene literally? Like this guy shape-shifted into Phoenix Wright? And speaking of this case, how did Phoenix not hear about this until a month later? Look, I get the joke. Nobody can recognize Phoenix if he isn't wearing a blue suit with his iconic spiky hair. I did find this pretty funny, but thinking about it, it makes me even more upset. Like, Come on, man. And don't get me started on the judge in this case. This dude gets asked to testify in court for the paper badge, but he refuses. First of all, the judge shouldn't be the judge for this case because by law, he would be compromised. The only reason why I bring this up is because this game added another judge who is the judge in a few cases. So there was potential here to have the main judge testify while his brother is the judge of the case. Such wasted potential! And again, when it comes to this case, Phoenix somehow doesn't learn about this embarrassing career-ending loss to Winston Payne of all people until a month later. Even if he doesn't pay attention to the news, newspaper, TV, etc., you think Maya would have said something about it, or Gumshoe, or regular people out on the streets like Phoenix. What the heck was that all about? I thought you were a good lawyer, or something. And the reason why Maggie killed Elg in this case doesn't make any sense because they argue she poisoned Elg for the winning lottery ticket, but never explains why she had the poison in the first place. Let me explain a little bit. She didn't know Elg had the winning lottery ticket, and they announced the win on radio while she was balls deep into her shift. She could not have planned for this murder, but like I said earlier, proving the motive only goes one way in these games. And the last three cases I've been complaining about have been the third cases in the trilogy. These third cases are so bad. It's like this in Danganronpa 2, where the third cases are always objectively the worst in the series. Is this the status quo for chaptered games? It's kind of like this with movies too, where the third movie and game in the series is always the weakest entry, for whatever reason. Interestingly enough, the second entry is usually seen as the best in the series. But that's besides the point. I just want to know why the third cases in these games are always so fucking poor. How can a game with some of the stupidest characters be getting some of the most complex cases? Seriously, in real life, how do you explain the murder scene where a man dies from a statue, his cape flung up into the air, attaching itself to said statue, and the statue started floating, making people think a magic man killed the man, then started flying away in a serious setting? You'd get laughed out of the courtroom. And oh my gosh, the motive for Turnabout Big Top is so stupid, it's literally this SpongeBob meme I found online. I'm not going to go over how dumb some of these motives are because, well, people have killed for much less in real life, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But you know what is not in the realm of possibilities? Look at me being able to wear this mask with this massive schnoz. To me, this was the most obvious sign Look at Me was guilty. This dude has the most horizontal nose next to Loris Griffin and Igor from the Persona series. He had to be the culprit here because it would be freaking hilarious. And oh, surprise, surprise, I was right. And I know I wasn't the only one that thought this because him fitting into this mask would be impossible, but it would be hilarious to think how his nose bends up to his forehead for this to work. I don't really know how to segue into this one, so the characters, some of them throughout the trilogy, I liked a lot. Some of the characters like Maya Fey, though I find weird how she's been kidnapped twice and 3 times been framed for murder in the trilogy, but you know, whatever. Is this gonna happen in every Ace Attorney game after the first trilogy? Let me know in the comments. Spoiler free though. But moving on, for some of the other reoccurring characters, there's a very clear switch when characters started to change and not in a good way. For example, Dick Gumshoe. He was pretty solid in the first game. He did his thing a little bit, he was still acting like a rookie and was clumsy, little dumb, but he wasn't painfully stupid. In the next 2 games, he becomes incompetent and couldn't get basic facts to a case right. He became the, oh, I'm so poor, they pay me peanuts, I can only make ramen noodles. Him being poor is literally his character, despite the fact he is a homicide detective. What on earth is the economy like in the Phoenix Wright universe if you can't even afford food for being a literal detective. They really do live in California. And then you have Rindy Oldbag, who had some character in her first case in Turnabout Samurai. She realizes her idol wasn't all that good, then later helped Phoenix and Maya out with the investigation. Good stuff. But after this case, she's just there sipping over Edgeworth. Oh, my edgy poo. Bruh. The absolute worst example of this, though, has to be Larry Butts himself. And this one actually hurts because I like Larry. Larry in the first game was cool, dumb, the stoner type that was always there for his friends. In every game he's appeared in after, though, he just gushes over every girl under the sun, even Pearl, who was 9 years old in this scene. Which kind of raises another question. This whole interaction strongly implies Phoenix just carries around pictures of people on him, along with all of the pieces of evidence in the case. As a matter of fact, in these cases, you carry around an absurd amount of evidence. This man gotta be mad healthy. You mean to tell me this dude is out here carrying all this bullshit walking location to location? But assuming he gets around on bike like how he does in the anime, that means he's carrying around a bunch of pictures and like 75 pounds worth of evidence with Maya and sometimes Pearl on his back. This man is really going through it. But seriously, am I the only one that's a bit annoyed with how ambiguous the Phoenix Wright universe is? Like, things would happen, but is never explained or really is canon. I get not everything needs an explanation. Some of it isn't really all that relevant at all to the story, but it's just nice. It's nice to know, you know? Like Maya and Emma being able to read Phoenix's mind. The blue text being Phoenix thinking to himself, but Maya a few times would respond to the blue text as if Phoenix said it out loud when he isn't. People can casually read minds and it's never mentioned or brought up ever. Or like, how did Manfred die? They mentioned it, but it doesn't go into it at all. Just, oh, that's right, Manfred died. And that would be the first and last time it ever gets mentioned. Like, did he get the death penalty? Was he too old? Like, what happened to him? What are Phoenix's parents like? He never mentions them in any of the flashbacks or to Maya, even though family is a pretty big deal to her. And Phoenix himself cares about her family too. So you'd think at some point Phoenix would be like, man, I couldn't imagine my mom manipulating me like how Pearl's mom is manipulating her. Or even though I don't have any siblings or cousins myself, I can still feel Maya's pain for Pearl's. Or something, a comment about his family, no matter how vague. But we get nothing. Or what about religion? How is religion not the most popular thing ever? Spirit mediums legit proves the existence of a higher power and an afterlife of some kind. How can one be exposed to the dead taking over people's bodies and not immediately be converted? Like I said earlier about Brian still being an atheist even after meeting God in the flesh. How? The spirit medium stock should be booming. But it's like they just don't exist in universe. And I can get on everybody's head for not recognizing Furio Tigre and not being able to tell the difference between him and Phoenix, but I also have to jump on Phoenix's head here for not recognizing Shelly the Killer. I mean, he has stitches straight in the center of his whole body. Why is everybody in universe Roger from American Dad? Despite the fact this guy is not human looking at all, he can still fool everybody into thinking he's human. Funny, ongoing joke, but that's a comedy show. That's not supposed to be taken seriously. Why is everybody in the Phoenix Wright universe capable of this level of deception? This is Superman hiding his identity with glasses levels of logic. Not even sunglasses. We're talking clear glasses. And what about characters just in general? We get straight into a case and we rarely see any slice of life moments between characters. Like weeks, months would go by and we don't see these characters interact much at all, if ever. I mean, some of them make sense, like Phoenix and Gumshoe, they aren't exactly buddies. Larry is off doing his thing, Gumshoe too. But what about Maya and Pearls? Do they hang out? Does Phoenix just exist in his house after cases until Mile pulls up and drags him to the next case? As a matter of fact, where does Phoenix live? Does he just live in his office? Actually, does this dude even have a social life? We know so shockingly little about Phoenix, it irritates me. And it irritates me even more because it literally does not matter. Who cares about this guy's social life if he has a relationship with his parents, where he lives, his reputation, his fame in universe? It literally doesn't matter all that much. The only thing we get from Phoenix is a flashback of him being framed for stealing lunch money. That's it. It makes the universe feel so incredibly small. And I think that's one of the biggest problems I have with this trilogy. We don't really know anything about the universe outside of the cases. When a case pulls up, we get the information necessary to solve said case, and that's it. We don't really get into anything else about the world, which isn't that big of an issue at first, but we're 3 games in the series and we keep getting the same few characters, same prosecutor each case, with the exception of the tutorial case and the last case of each game. In terms of gameplay, this game be mad frustrating for no reason, because there are times where you have to present a random piece of evidence on an even random statement. Like, bruh, how are you supposed to know these two go together without presenting every piece of evidence first? Or the times where you present the wrong evidence even though it literally would have proven your point, but it's not the evidence the game wanted. For example, in Farewell My Turnabout, Adrian Andrews was like, I didn't know the guy was dead. So you know what I did? You know what I presented? I presented the autopsy that said he was stabbed with a knife sticking out of his body. Well, apparently that was wrong. Then I did the knife itself. It was still wrong. In this situation, you're supposed to show the photo, and the very first thing they brought up was the knife sticking out of Juan Corrida's body. You can't present the knife or autopsy, you have to present the picture of the knife. Like, piss off, game. I feel like this is a very common thing in the series. Like in Rise from the Ashes, Emma says Dark stabbed Neil in the chest, but the autopsy report says he was stabbed in the back. Contradiction right there. Emma was wrong. So what in the fuck was the point of this scribbling section? And this one really pissed me off the most. At the end of Turnabout Goodbyes, Maya wanted a piece of evidence that proves she wasn't useless. So naturally, I presented the parrot because that literally helped us win the trial. That was probably the most crucial piece of evidence in the entire case. Like, how is this not also the right answer? Or pressing a statement, then presenting evidence on a different statement. And don't get me started on the times where you have to press a statement multiple times to advance the story. Like, how am I supposed to know you're supposed to do that? No hints? You're not. This is the one time you're supposed to give me a hint and you don't give me a hint, which is so stupid because this game would hold our hands through some of the most easiest and basic sections of the trial, but the one time a hint is actually needed, the hand holding stops. Sure, hold my hand while I walk up to the bike, but when it's time to actually start riding for the first time, you just dip. Like, bruh, I didn't need help walking to the bike. I need help here. I need help now. Where are you? Man. If you liked the video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you didn't like the video, still like, share, comment, and subscribe because screw you. Watch more of my videos and like those videos. And hit the notification bell while you're at it so you'll get notified when I upload another video for you to like, share, and comment on. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. We're done here.